Alright, cool. So in this video, I am going to show you the entire step-by-step process that we take and we do for our outbound. So basically, the premise and the reason why I'm doing this is I speak to a lot of go-to-market teams. I speak to a lot of founders and people in sales and everything like that who are currently running an outbound motion. So they are trying to get sell a high ticket offer or high average order value offer. And they're trying to reach their prospects through cold email and LinkedIn and all this kind of stuff. And a lot of times it surprises me that the process that they have is pretty manual, or it's just not like up to date, if that makes sense. Like it's something that maybe worked several years ago and it's not necessarily up to date in terms of like good practices for copy, in terms of like building lists, in terms of workflows, in terms of using AI, in terms of all different types of things. And a lot of people don't necessarily know. So I figured I'd make this guide and show you how we build a list like completely from scratch. It's going to be pretty in detail. There are so many different things that we could cover, but that will be for separate videos. But this is pretty in detail. So I'll run you through and I'll create like an entire campaign from scratch. And then this is pretty much what we've been using so far to generate about 8 to 10 qualified meetings per week. And it's not to say that it's completely automated, because I don't also agree with that. And it's not, spamming people or anything like that. It's building targeted lists to the right people, reaching out when it's relevant, with good messaging and a good offer slash lead magnet. And then doing that and then being very human in the follow up. So yeah, we're not just there's automation part of it, but that frees up time to be more human. As opposed to just completely automating everything, because then that's how you don't stand out. That's how you get lost in the sea of emails in their inbox. So yeah, feel free to use this and take some ideas and tips on how you can implement this into your own outbound workflow as well. So yeah, we'll be building out a campaign today targeting small medium enterprises that are currently hiring within sales or marketing across the US, and we'll be selling a video software that's just for this example. Obviously, if you're a service-based business or you're selling a different type of product, whatever it is, then feel free to take the points that are most relevant to you and use those. But really, we're going to be covering, and I'll show you what we'll cover in just a second. And we're going to be using a free trial with a coupon code as our lead magnet and offer. So something that they would normally have to pay for, but we're giving it to them for free. That's what's going to be the email copy is around, and that's what the campaign is going to be around. But yeah, this is just an example, and you could be targeting marketing, automotive, fintech, health tech, real estate, enterprise, mid-market, startups, local services, like anything. And you could be using like loads of different types of products or services. But yeah, this workflow is pretty similar. These are all just ideas that can help you essentially, so that you can make some tweaks and changes to your workflow, not have to do everything so manually, or just some new ideas that you could implement. So our target is hiring for sales and marketing professionals. So they have a sales or marketing team already in place. And it shows that they're doing outbound in some kind of way, which is what the video tool obviously helps. And then they are between 1 to 100 employees, and they're based in the US. So that's our ICP. But obviously, if you're doing something like this, just make sure that you are defining your ICP, understanding their challenges and everything before you actually go into this. Won't be covering email deliverability or email copy, as those are basically their own separate topics. We've created some guides here. So there's an email deliverability guide, and as well as a copywriting guide, which you can follow here as well, which have helped us and our clients to get really good responses and everything like that. So yeah, feel free to follow those. So yeah, in terms of what we'll cover, we'll build out a prospecting list, and we'll do this in Clay. You can also use Apollo, but I'll go through that in just a second. We'll find the decision makers and their email addresses. We'll verify their email addresses, and then I'll show you the copy that we're going to use for the campaigns. And then I'll show you how to set up the campaigns in Smartlead, which is our sequencing tool. And then we'll show you how we qualify the leads once we start actually getting things booked in. And then we'll show you how to analyze the campaigns and for split testing as well. So that's what we'll cover in the video. Not quite sure how long it'll be, but it'll be pretty in-depth, and just quite literally show you exactly what we would do. Like, we're building this campaign pretty much live from scratch. Obviously, it would take a lot longer once we're actually doing it, but this is at least like an overview of how we would do it. So first thing, we want to build the targeted prospecting lists. So the two tools that we mainly use for this are either clay.com or apollo.io. There are many more. Ocean, my mind's going blank for all of them, but there are literally hundreds of tools. Seamless. What's the other one? Lusher. Zoom Info. There's all sorts of different databases that you can use. So find the one that works for you. These are just the ones that work best for us. Clay is really good because it combines 50 different data sources and different data providers all in one, and then it kind of pulls them in, so you can search for all of those from one place. And then Apollo is pretty good price for what you pay for. It's pretty great value for money for, I think it's like $50, $60 a month or something for the entry level one, but you still get 10,000 email credits for that, which is fantastic. So yeah, that's what we'll be using. In this video, we'll just use Clay, but you can also use Apollo. And I'll create separate videos on how you actually export lists and get around the sort of export limits on Apollo by using data scrapers and things like that. So anyways, but that's for a separate time. So what we're going to do is, if our workflow starts in Apollo, then we'll export the data and then enrich it in Clay. Or if we're starting in Clay, we just do everything within Clay. And with these tools, what they allow us to do is to A, build a list, but B, also be able to target certain segments and based on certain triggers or intent data. So that could be announcements and product launches, it could be funding, it could be website traffic, it could be job postings, it could be department growth, it could be tech that they use that you integrate with, ads that they're running, communities and groups. There's a whole long list. And I'm pretty sure I put that in the email copywriting guide as well, so you can see the full list there. That's that can help in terms of like when to reach out and what kind of messaging to use and everything like that. For the one today, we're going to be using job postings, and I'll show you how we actually pull that data from Clay or from one place. So yeah, that's what you can do to make your campaigns more relevant, rather than just building a list of, I don't know, a bunch of companies without any intent. Like they all at completely different stages of their journeys in terms of what their current problems are. So why not refine what like the segment of problems that you're targeting and be specific about the problems that you're targeting. So yeah, so there's that. And then finding decision makers and their email addresses and verifying their emails. So I'm going to go through the first three now. So we'll come over to Clay. And this is the interface. So we can go find jobs from LinkedIn. You can also do a search for companies from LinkedIn as well, but we're going to go for 5 jobs from LinkedIn. And then we can go on sales, and we can go on marketing as well. So these are all companies, so we don't really want, the other thing, is there anything we don't necessarily want? I think we're going to leave that one blank for now, but it's a pretty broad search. So we just want people that are hiring for sales and marketing in the US, and then we're going to filter later for the company size. They've got more filters here, so you can have like has recruiter, doesn't have recruiter and stuff. Obviously, it's going to pull some listings that have recruiters or the recruitment firm is hiring on behalf of that client. Obviously, we don't want those, so we're going to filter out like staffing and recruiting industry as well. But I'll show you how to do that. But this is how we're going to do it now. But you can also import a list of companies as well, and then find the jobs, the ones that are currently hiring there. So this is going to include anyone that's hiring for sales or marketing or SDR or BDR or business development. Yeah, perfect. So, and then you can also do like keywords in the job description and things like that, but we're just going to leave that blank. So we're going to go preview jobs, just give it a second to load. Cool. So there are obviously over 10,000 results because it's a pretty big search. We don't need all of those. So we're actually going to limit the results, and we probably could just do with like, actually, we're going to import these. And then we're going to filter by the ones that have a lower company count. So let me just move my face. So it pulls up the list here, and as you can see, it's kind of like spreadsheets, which is pretty cool. But it pulls in all data from different places, and I'll show you how you can enrich and all sorts of stuff in just a second. But you can see here, these are the jobs, and then this here is the company, job title, and so on and so forth. Now, what we want to do is we want to actually look and see. We want to get so we've got the company URL, we've got that. Okay, great. So what we want to do now is actually find we want to find the people from these specific companies, that are either like the hiring manager or the founder or the CEO or just anything along those lines, that we can then reach out to, and then we'll find their email addresses from there. But we also want to filter the companies and the company size, which means that we need to enrich for the company data from LinkedIn to find out the number of employees and company size, basically. And actually, I forgot one thing before we get into that, because we're going to have to enrich the data. But what we want to do first, because we've got 2,500 companies, there's quite a lot of companies that are hiring here, right? So we want to filter down by the companies that are currently hiring. So this is pulled data from LinkedIn for any open job listings that have the word sales, marketing, BDR, etc., in the title. So we want to filter that down and only have the ones that have been open since sort of like mid-October, maybe November time. So we're going to click on sort, add sort, and we go over to here and we're going to post it on, and then we can just filter it like that. So as you can see, all of these here are from like last year, 22nd, 2022. These are all May, June, July. So this is obviously, they're all probably hired the person or closed or just not a priority right now. So we're getting into October. So we want to now filter it probably from like just the ending of October, I would say. So we've got about 5-6 weeks. So I'm just going to click from here. I'm just going to go up. And I'm going to delete all of these here, these rows. So yeah, now we've got all the jobs posted from the 26th of October. All the way down to November, and then if we keep scrolling down, these are all the most current jobs. So if we click here, we can see, this is quite literally 4 hours ago for here. So yeah, you can see here that 4 hours ago. Now you can see as well that a lot of these are going to be staffing and recruiting, so we're going to filter out those because we don't want to reach out to the recruiter, we want to reach out to the actual company. So a lot of these listings are going to be staffing and recruiting. We want to filter those out, but we'll do that in just a second. So let's go back to our table. But you can see that, it's pulling up the current jobs. So cool. So what we're going to do now is we're going to enrich the companies on LinkedIn to find the company size, because we want to filter that down. We don't want to be targeting, for this particular thing, we don't want to be targeting enterprise. It's going to be too much. So yeah, we're going to click new column, click add enrichment, and then we're going to go over to enrich company, and then we go over to URL company. There we go, company URL, perfect. Yeah, so company URL, and then we can click add, and then we can go over to employee count and size, because sometimes one is wrong and the other is right. So we want to just keep it like that. And then we're going to go over to save and run first 10 rows. And then that's going to run for just the first 10 rows, just so you can kind of save credits and see if it's going well. Because Clay is all done on a credit-based system as well. So just as an FYI. But yeah, you can see here, we've got, one that's like 10,000 employees, one that's like 1,000 employees, and so on. And we don't want that. So what we're going to do is we're going to enrich, choose number of rows to run. So we're just going to run the first 250 odd rows from row 11. So yeah, we're going to run these. And we're going to run these, and then what we're going to do afterwards, we're going to filter by the company size. And then once we've filtered by the company size, then we're going to filter by the industry. And we're going to get rid of the ones that are staffing and recruiting under that, so that we're just left with companies that are between 1 and 100 employees that are currently hiring in the US for salespeople or marketing people, who are, basically using Outbound essentially, and who are the actual company, not the staffing and recruitment company working on behalf of them. So yeah, let's just give this a sec. Okay, great. So as you can see, this is all running. And then we've added in the company LinkedIn URL here to the table as well. So now that this is running, we actually we can click into one of the companies in the table. And you can see here that we have all of these different options. So this is all of the data that it's pulled, but this data is not currently in the table. And we can add it to the table if we want to, which is why we can just click on it. If everything was added, it would look a little bit messy, but we can go over to industry, and then add industry here as well. So now that we've got industry, we can now filter by the employee count as well as the industry, which means once we filtered here and we found the businesses that are sort of 1 to 100 employees, it may actually be 200 employees on second thought, just because I'm not sure how big the list is going to be, but you get the idea. 1 to 200 employees, and then the industry is like software, etc., etc. It's not staffing and recruiting. We want to avoid that because then we'd be talking to the recruiter and not the actual company we want to contact. So let's see how many of these are done. Let's have a look and see. Okay, great. So yes, we've got about 250 odd here. We can just do, let's do another like 50, and then we can run with we've sort of got 300 leads that we can use. So we can do 50. You can also run the whole column as well if you really wanted to. 261. Cool. So yeah, so we can run all of that. And then what we'll do is we're going to filter by the size, by the employee count. So we're going to go over to sort, and we're going to go over to employee count, and then it's going to filter based on employee count. So you can see all the smaller businesses here. Perfect. That's exactly what we want. And the great thing is the companies that are smaller tend not to use a recruitment firm. Because obviously it's going to be expensive. So the companies that we're looking for may actually be that they don't necessarily use a recruitment firm. So we may not have to deal with that whole thing. But large companies will most likely use a recruitment firm. So that's what we're going to have to. So you can see here, like staffing and recruiting, if we were to click onto emerge, so I can see. Yeah, so that's emerge. Let's have a look at the job posting that they have. Yeah, so I think this is for another company, right? So again, if we contacted that person, they're not the one, they're hiring for another company. So we're going to want to filter this out. And as you can see here, I'm just going to refresh the page. Okay, cool. So keep scrolling down. Right, so it gets to about 200 here. So we want to cut out all of these businesses. We don't need them. Right, they're too big. We don't want to target these kinds of businesses. So we can just click that and we can just delete all rows. Obviously, if we were to run the whole list of 2,500, we would have a huge list of businesses that we could target, but just for time's sake, I'm not going to do that because it'll take a little bit of time. Let me just move my face down here. So yeah, you can see that here we now have a list of companies. Now there are some that are a little bit wrong, right? As you can see here. So we're actually going to filter and sort by size, by size. So click here, sort by size. And we can see that there's a couple of companies here that are basically not fitting into the criteria. So I'm just going to delete these, which is why I just want to sort of double sort these. And yeah, we can see here that again, there's a few more. There's a few more that are kind of looking like that for some reason. So we'll just delete these. So again, it's a little bit of manual, but pretty much a lot quicker than going on LinkedIn and scraping job postings, putting that all into a spreadsheet manually. So yeah, all right, cool. So now we've got a list of about, we can actually filter this, and we can filter by, let's just say size. That is not empty. And then we've got the actual list. So we've got 123, right? 123 companies. Now what we want to do next is make sure that we are not contacting staffing and recruiting. So we're going to sort the list and we're going to go onto industry and sort it by A to Z. And then when it gets to staffing and recruiting, here we go. We're going to delete all of these businesses as well. And delete, there we go. So now all of these businesses should, in theory, and obviously we'll check it, should in theory be the original businesses that are posting and advertising for the job and not a recruiting firm advertising on their behalf. So we have, about 96 companies that are currently hiring. We want to as well just check if there's any duplicates. So we could do that by coming over to this column, and then we can go over to, sorry, not this one. We can go over to company name, and we can go over to dedupe, and there's a couple of little duplicates, so we can delete. Great. Okay, cool. So we've got now a list of 89 companies that are currently hiring for sales, BDRs, marketing, and so on and so forth within the US that are between 1 to 200 employees that are not a recruiting or recruitment agency, basically. And we can see this, so we can click through, like, let's just say 10 of them, and we can see how good they actually are. And then this is sort of the manual checking, and if they sort of check out as good companies to target, then that's when we'll move to the next stage, which is finding people within those companies, if it decides to load. Great, so that's perfect company. Yep, that's perfect. That's perfect. Yep, that's perfect. So these are a mixture of, yeah, advertising companies. That's also perfect as well. That's perfect. Yeah, so the industry is industry agnostic for this targeting. It's more for the focus really is on the fact that they're hiring for sales. So this is basically a mixture of software companies and marketing agencies, which is perfect. Now, if we wanted to just double check the job listings, we can do that for, like, say, 5 companies here. So that was the LinkedIn profiles. They said they're no longer accepting applications. So you can also further filter it like this, but it still might be worth reaching out to them. You don't know what the case is. They may have just re-uploaded the job and so on. So it might be worth still reaching out to them, considering that these are only from about 3 weeks ago. And so, yeah, these are all hiring for, yeah, exactly. So they're all hiring for they're hiring for their specific businesses. So we can see here, these are all like perfect businesses for the video tool that we're selling, right? So yeah, cool. Now we've got that. We've got our list of about 89 different prospects, or companies, sorry. We can go over to find people, and we may go over to job title. So we're just going to target pretty broadly anyone in sales or anyone in marketing, but obviously they're going to have to either be a manager, head, director, owner, or C-suite or VP. And we can filter it by US, but we're not going to. We're just going to go preview people. And yeah, so there's 150 people here. I was probably expecting more. Maybe we could put like a CEO. We could put founder. Let's try that. So there's a few more. So we put partner as well. Yeah, so it's about 195. It's probably should be more. So I could spend more time kind of sifting through this, but this at least gives us like a good start for the list. So we can import 195 people. And these are from those businesses that we've already searched. These are from the companies that are currently hiring. And this is basically, yeah, you can see CEO, CSO, VP of sales, co-founder, CEOs, VP, sales and marketing manager. And a lot of times with these roles, even though you might be targeting like a head of sales, a lot of times it could be marketing director that also feeds in, depending on the size of the company. If it's a smaller size, obviously people tend to do a lot more jobs within that company and wear a lot more hats. So it could be that you want to have more of a broad targeting, because a lot of times when we've done campaigns, we actually speak to marketing directors who are managing outbound, even though you wouldn't think that it's probably like head of sales, but they don't necessarily have a head of sales. They might have a marketing director that just manages the whole thing. So you want to be kind of broad with that targeting. But these are all decision makers, so these are manager level and up. And again, obviously depends on what you're targeting, but this is just an example. So yes, we have 195. Now what we're going to do here is we've got their LinkedIn. and we're just going to expand out. So we've got their LinkedIn profile over here. We're just going to expand out and add a few more columns. So as you can see, we've got full name, but we want to actually, when we do our outreach, we're obviously going to say, hey, first name. So we have that here as a column. We can click add column and we can go add first name. So when you export this list, you can just put the first name variable in your email copy. The other thing as well that we can do is we can get their company name. So we can hit company name here, and we can add that to the table. Now, obviously, if you're reaching out and you put a variable of company name in, you don't want things like, R and limited and all this kind of stuff. There are workflows in here. I'm not going to go through it now, but there are workflows in here to remove that. So you aren't sending like something in all caps or, just the way that you wouldn't write it if you weren't doing it in an automated way. So what we're going to do now is we're going to find people's email addresses. So we click add enrichment and we come over to emails and we come over to work email. Now, what Clay does is it does a waterfall, and a waterfall is basically touching on different providers. So it has the maximum coverage. If Prospero doesn't find it, then it'll try drop contact. If drop contact doesn't find the email, then it'll try Detagma and so on and so forth. You can move these around as well, and you can add different providers. You can connect it via API to Apollo and all that kind of good stuff. The other thing that you can do is also connect it with a validation provider. So like zero bounce, never bounce, rebounce, etc. Which means that the final email that it outputs has been verified. So it's found the email and then it's tested and verified the email so that you're not getting emails that are unverified and catch-alls or risky and so on. Because then if you send a lot of emails to those kinds of domains or those emails, you're going to have problems with your deliverability. So you don't want to do that. Cool. So full name, we just map the fields. So this is all the information that it needs. And then we just click save and run the first 10 rows. And so it may not necessarily find the email here, but it can try and find it here, 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 and here. And then it will output the final validated email, which is great, which means we don't need to verify it again. We can just verify it here. If you did want to verify it again, then you can use tools like debounce, which is integrated into here, which is how it's verifying right now. The other alternative, you can use Million Verifier, where you export the CSV and you import it into Million Verifier. So I'll show you very quickly what that looks like. So we've got email verifier. If you just let me log in. So it's really, really simple, but you quite literally just select the file and upload it and then click verify. But you must make sure that you're verifying your emails. If you don't verify your emails, then you're going to have a high likelihood of it bouncing. You want to keep your bounce rate to below 2%. So I say here, you want to make sure, even if you're using something like Apollo that says, no, we have verified emails, always check with a specific verification tool. You don't want to be sending to emails that get bounces. You want to have less than 2% bounce rate. And you don't want to go over that because otherwise you'll cause issues to your emails. So you can see here that we have gone and basically built out the so we've got a few valid emails. I think we've got 5 in there. So we can now carry on and we can run and we can say choose number of columns to run. Or actually, we're just going to run the whole thing. So run column, run all the rows that haven't run. And this is going to run and find the email addresses for every single person in this list. And I just hope you can kind of see how simple this workflow is and how much easier this could be than maybe something that you're potentially using right now, where you've taken a good trigger, which is they're currently hiring for sales and marketing. So obviously looking to expand or have some kind of growing pains around that you could then target into. And again, this is just an example so you can find the triggers that are most relevant for your industry or service that you're offering. We found the decision makers. We found the right companies that we want to work with. And then we've also found their emails and verified the emails all within one place. So I hope you can see this, like how much more efficient this could be than maybe some of the other workflows or something that you're doing at the moment. And I'll go through qualifying things a little bit later, but for now, this is pretty useful. All right, cool. So as you can see, the table has finished finding people's email addresses. So what we're going to do is we're going to filter by validated work email. So you can see how many we've actually got. Validated work email. It's not empty. 95. Okay, cool. So we've got an initial list of around 95. Obviously, if we wanted to make it bigger, we could run more of the companies in the previous find jobs table, because this is a separate table where it's find people table. And yeah, so you can see how sort of simple it is and how quickly it is to find verified email addresses. So now what do we do? So we've got their emails, and we've got the decision makers, we've got their first names. We are going to export the list. So come over to here, download view as a CSV. I want to just name it. So test list US hiring. And then we're going to download view as a CSV. We can push this directly to Smartlead, but and our sequencing tool, but for this tutorial, I'm just going to show you how to export it, import it, and so on. So yeah, that's been downloaded. Right, so next, once we've got our list, we've got a list of 95. Again, we could expand that out super easily if we really wanted to. But for the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to show you this is around 100 or so. Next is the copy. And the copy alongside the targeting are the two most important things. So we've already got a really good list. The next thing we need to figure out is what is our lead magnet, what is our relevant observation, and then what is our case study or social proof. These are the three things that we need for writing a really good email that will help us get good response rates. And I've actually already written out the emails, which I'll go through in just a second, but I'm going to talk through this quickly. There is also a full guide above for email copy, so feel free to read that through, which will go more in detail, but I'll just run through. So the lead magnet is basically what can you offer in your email that is basically really enticing for the prospect to say yes and to open up the conversation. The goal of the email is to get eyeballs, attention, and to open up a conversation. It is not to book in a call. Do not ask them for a call first email. They don't know you. You literally message them out of the blue. You're a stranger. They don't know anything about you whatsoever. You haven't helped them and you're asking for something. If someone asked for something from you before they even knew you and you didn't know anything about them, would you say yes? Would you say no? However, if someone gave you something that they researched that was helpful to your specific problem that you have based on the research that they did, and then they just gave it to you for free, would you be at least a little bit more inclined to hear the person out, or at least be interested or intrigued or curious and want to find out a bit more? And that's the approach that we want to take. It's about creating a lead magnet that is very enticing, that has zero friction for delivering and for them to consume, that they're able to consume and then understand, or at least have exposure to your service or product without having had to do anything, basically. And the goal with that is to drive more traffic and eyeballs to your product or service to then be able to convert them. And we'd rather have more traffic coming through and more eyeballs coming through and then figure out how to convert that attention, as opposed to having no traffic or no eyeballs coming through. So we'd rather be in the first problem where we have traffic and then figuring out how to convert that attention. So that's the goal of the lead magnet. It is not to ask for a call up front in the emails. Lead magnet can be, as an example, be mock-ups, it could be designs, it could be templates, it could be guides, it could be courses, it could be leads or lists, and so on. One that we use for our business, which the reason why you're probably watching this, is a lead list. Very easy for us to fulfill. It costs time, but it's very easy to fulfill, and it's incredibly valuable for the end prospect. Another good example is mock-ups or design mock-ups. If you're doing like website design, relatively easy to fulfill because it's templates. But you just chop and change the imagery and text, and then you can send that across, and they'll obviously be impressed that you've done work for free for them, basically shown a little bit about what you can actually do, without them asking for anything. You're just giving something, and then they can either be like, yeah, this is cool, or this is not cool, right? And that's dependent on what your work is like, but that shows or can give a glimpse of what you'd be like to work with, which can build trust and build goodwill as well. So yeah, that's some ideas for lead magnets. This is really important. Don't skip this. Don't not do it. Don't think that a free consultation or a strategy session or something is a lead magnet. It's not. It's not an offer. Everyone does that. Everyone says that they can do some free consultation or free demo or free something like that. It's not. That's not what it is. It has to be allowing people to experience your product or service for free that is very easy to deliver, that has low operational costs and time commitment or costs, but very high value for the other person. And a free strategy session, i.e., disguised as a sales call, is not it's not a it's not super valuable to them. So yeah, think about them first, the prospect first. What do they want, and then work backwards from there and create something that's really good. So yeah, that's the lead magnet. The relevant observation in this case is basically based around problem sniffing. So what I mean by that, again, I go into more detail in the email guide, but what I mean by problem sniffing is basically, hey, I've seen that this is happening with your company. Have you thought about doing this? Or this thing is happening, I can see it with your company. That means that this, or this might be happening right now. You might be struggling with this thing. For example, hey, I see that you're hiring or that you've grown like, I don't know, 50% in the last 6 months or something with your sales team. Probably having growing pains. So maybe they're having an issue with like ramping their SDRs. So if you have a service that you sell, or product that you sell around helping ramp SDRs, like that's a perfect example of like, they're, because you see this thing, they're probably struggling with this, which means that you can then offer your solution at that perfect time. So that's what we're trying to do. Now, this isn't always available because sometimes probably the information just isn't public. But the more work you have to do to get this information, the more relevant and more the likely people are to respond, because it's super personalized. And that's what people say when they mean, that's what people mean when they say personalized. It doesn't mean like, hey, I saw your LinkedIn post, great job. It's like, no, it's specific to what their problem is at that particular moment. So yeah, excuse the geckos in the background if you can hear that. So yeah, that's what the relevant observation is. Not always possible, but if it is, then use that. And that's great to go in your first line in your preview text, because that's what people will see if they're on their phone or on their desktop. They see that preview text. If it's relevant to what their specific pain point is at that moment, they're so much more likely to open it. And that's why we're able to get like 75% open rates, because it's specific. And then the third thing is a case study of relevant social proof. So this should be as relevant as possible to what they've done. So if you've worked with a company that is exactly the same size and grew very similarly, and you've got that case study, then share that with them. Say, hey, we helped this company do this, right? But obviously in the email, you want to make sure that about 90% of it is about them and their problems, and tiny bit is about you. And if it is about you, it's in the PS line. Everything is about helping them, right? So anyways, that's out the way, the copy. You've got some ideas, read the guide if you want more detail. So we've got the email copy here. So this is just what we would run for like this campaign. So they're hiring sales reps. So guessing you're using cold outbound to land clients. So it's an observation. So obviously we've seen that they're hiring sales reps. That's the list that we've built. We're targeting companies that are currently hiring sales reps and marketing people. So they're most likely using cold outbound, right? There's no way that could be wrong. Now, obviously, we could go way more in depth with this and do a lot more research, but for the sake of this video, we're not going to do that. But you could, and then you could also infer like what specific problems might be, what stage, how many people they're hiring, things like that, can then dictate the problems that you find out or uncover about that business that then can help you position your solution. Want to do like a little poke the bear question, basically just ask them something that makes them think for a brief second. And then give like a little bit of sort of proof or some kind of metric or something that can help out as well. And then with the lead magnet at the end. So you want to make the CTA a soft call to action. So something that's really easy to do, right? Reply yes, shoot over a shore or something, or just something that takes like 2 seconds to do. It's like, did it and done. Any like big friction of like you have to click a link, and then on that link you have to fill out like a bunch of questions on Calendly or something, like no, we won't do that. So they're busy and they don't care because they don't know who you are. You want to give them something that's like valuable, right? And the reason we don't send the free link in the first email is deliverability. We don't want to send links in the first email. You don't want to send images, you don't want to send links, anything like that. because that can hurt deliverability and end up landing in spam. We send links and images in the second and third and follow-ups, but not in the first one. We want to make sure that we're in the inbox first, and then sending across these links afterwards. So yeah, this is like the copy. What we always do is we always do about 3 to 5 different angles. So we can try like a different CTA, a slightly different offer. We could try different lead magnets. We could even try different testing, but for this, we're using one test list, and then we're using 3 different pieces of copy. But we could also have like 2 or 3 different like industries or things that we're targeting, and then use different copies per one that we're targeting. But for this, keep it simple, just 1, 2, 3 different tests. For the subject line, the best practice that we've found that works really well and it gives us about 75-80% open rates is just using something that looks like an internal email. Don't use any tricks or gimmicks or use a name or company or anything like that. Just say what the email's about. That's it. And it works really well. Like it's literally like 75-80% open rates like across the board just from using this. And it's not just say what the email's about and make it look like an internal email. That's it. So the video is about, the email's about using videos, or just put using videos. For some of the other ones that we send people like custom lists, we just literally call it custom list. Don't make it long, make it like 2 words, 1, 2, or 3 words max. Don't use a name, none of this like quick question with question marks or anything like that. Just say what it's about. That's it. Super simple. That's it. And it works really well. It looks like an internal email. It looks like from a colleague. It doesn't look like a sales and marketing email. Then the follow-up, the one that works really well for us and works well across all campaigns, is just thoughts on the last email. We can do that sort of like 2-3 days after the initial email. For here, because we're using and selling a video tool, we're putting in like a link for like an introduction. And then that's where we would put in the link. Then we have another follow-up here, which is where we're trying a slightly different angle. And again, you could do so many different variations. You really just have to get creative with this, but you could do a completely different angle that you're touching on a different pain point. But the goal, again, with all your emails is to add value. Just like give them things that could be valuable based on the observations and the problems that you've uncovered. So these are a few different ways that they could use video. And then the final email is like a breakup type of email. So we're just saying like, hey, is this still a priority? If it's not, no worries. You could also ask if there's another person to speak to at the company, or to put this on hold for now, or a whole bunch of different things. But this is just the structure that has worked for us in the past. So what we would do here is we would go over to Smartlead. So this is the next section, how to set up the campaigns in Smartlead. So quick note on this. Smartlead, the reason why we use Smartlead is because you're able to get unlimited inboxes and domains for one price, right? Whereas a lot of other tools like, I don't know, Apollo, Outreach, SalesLoft, insert whatever other sequencing tool you want to use, Lemlist, etc. They always charge based on per seat. So you could be paying $50 for one seat, but one seat is like one email address, which is a big problem because you don't want you don't want to send it from one email. You want to have like 2 to 3 emails per domain, and you want to have like 5 to 10 plus domains, and that's a whole separate thing. We have a whole guide on that if you want to look into that. So yeah, you want to go on Smartlead or Instantly, are the two that I know that allow you to do that. I think there's another one called Rift as well, but there's those are the tools that we use. We focus on. We've used Instantly; it's great as well, but we just use Smartlead just because we prefer it. So we can go over to here and email campaigns. So this is just some of the campaigns that we're running at the moment. We've got currently about 31 different campaigns that we're running. We can go over to add campaign. And then here we can upload the CSV, which is what we're going to do. So just going to put that in here. Ignore the leads from other campaign. Now we have set up a very similar campaign, so it might be the case. Actually, no, I'm just going to delete that. And then we can actually add this to HubSpot, so it syncs up with HubSpot as well, which is fantastic. So just give that a second. So we just want the first name. We don't want that. We want validated email, so we want to just make sure that we're mapping the fields properly. Email like this. Cool. And I think, yeah, that's pretty much everything. So we don't need this. We don't need this. Obviously, you can map this properly if you're setting it up, sort it all out in HubSpot or whatever other tool that you're using. But yeah, so there's 5 duplicates in here. So we've got 90 leads overall. Again, we can very easily expand it out. But then, yeah, what we would do is we'd quite literally just come over to here and we'd copy paste all of these into the sequences in Smartlead. And I will, so yeah, I'll pause this because it might get boring for you. All right, cool. So we've added these in here. We can just put in the subject line. So using video, let me just copy and paste these. But yeah, you can see that we've got 3 variations for their first email. We've obviously got their first name variable here. We can check and review the leads in just a second. And then we've got the follow-up here. I haven't added the videos in, but just because it's for tutorial. But yeah, and we've got a 3-day buffer between the first email and the second email, and then 3 days between the second and third. And then, sorry, not 2, it should be 4. It should be 4 days. So you can do anywhere from like 2 to 4 days in between. Maybe for the last email, you could spread it out even more with like 5 to 7 days or something. Obviously, you don't want to pester people. 2 to 3 follow-ups maximum really is what I would do, unless the 4th and 5th or something follow-up is like a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks away. Yeah, that's kind of how you want to do it. So yeah, you can see here we've got the sequence steps, we've got everything set up, and then we'll just literally click changes. Obviously, we'll just double check that, make sure that everything is all looking all good in there. We would go over to setup, and we choose the different sender accounts. So I'm just going to use this as an example, but like here, we just test. And so we would select like 6 or 7 different emails or something. Was that 8 different emails? So what that's going to do, you can see here. So we've got all of these emails here forward to our main domain, right? So if you send an email from this, if someone ever searched up leadineers.com, it would forward to our main domain, right? And this just means that every time you're sending an email, you're not causing issues by sending too many emails from one domain or from one email address. You're actually spreading that out across multiple email addresses. And again, this is in the guide, so it's in full detail there, but just to show you. So it will basically rotate. It will send 10 from, 10 from this email address, then 10 from this email address, then 10 from this email address. And so once it sends it from one, that means that sequence 2, email 2, 3, 4, 5 will follow from that email address. It's not going to be like sent from this email and sent from this email. It will follow from that. So it will send the sequences all from the same email, but then the first email will be sent from multiple different emails. So yeah, if you've got Oliver M at leadineers.com, that will then send email 1, 2, 3, and 4 from that. And then if it has rotated to this one, it will send email 1, 2, 3, and 4 from this one, and so on and so forth. And that's basically how it works. And that's what minimizes you going into spam, minimizes anything hurting your deliverability, and also maximizes you getting a good open rate as well. So that's how it would work. And then we just click on, save email addresses. And then we can schedule the campaign. So obviously this is the US. So the one thing with the US is there's 3 different time zones. So realistically, if I wanted to do a step further of like filtering, I would have filtered by companies based in the like in LA, Middle Central America, and then Eastern time, so that we could have like different timings for sending those emails out. But yeah, we want to just set the time that we start sending emails out, and it will send an email every 20 minutes. So you can set that here as well, and then when it will stop, so it will have that sending window. And then you can set the date that you're going to start the campaign, and then you can send how many number of emails you want to be sent every single day from that specific campaign. So let's say you're using, in this case, 8 different email addresses. Each one of those sends 20 emails. You're going to be sending, 160? 160 emails per day would be the total. So you'd probably put like 160, right? And then once you've got that, you can also change the time zone. So we could go New York. It's North Dakota, but yeah, you get the point. And then anyways, once you've got that, we go over to save and next, and we do a final review. And one of the things that I would always recommend is make sure that you send yourself a test email. And then have a look on your phone so that you can see what it looks like on mobile as well. You do not want to be sending something that's like really long. As you can see, this is like super short. It's probably like less than 50 words or something. Short, skimmable, to the point, relevant, good lead magnet. It should do really, really well. So yeah, and then once you do that, you just click start campaign, and it will start sending those emails out. So yeah, it's pretty much as simple but not simple as that. So that's the process of how to set up the campaigns. In terms of how we qualify the leads, so there's two ways that we do this. So number one is in the way that we build the list. So obviously we're building targeted lists. It's kind of like more of a light qualification. We don't use like lead scoring. We don't use like qualification tools or anything like that. We just spend more time building the list and make sure that it's a good list. That's number one way, so that we're not, and it's a little bit of manual process. Obviously, I skimmed through how we do it just now, but we would manually go through like a whole bunch more leads to make sure that they're good. And then we kind of figure that, okay, if like 75 are really good, then it's most likely that the rest of the list are pretty good. And then the second way that you do this and filter out your leads so that you're not having to like spend ages manually qualifying them at the start is it's much better to filter them out at the back end. So once you've actually got their attention, once they're coming through your scheduler. So if you use Calendly, for example, you obviously have the option to write out questions, and you'd be surprised at how many businesses don't do this, or they just don't use this at all. This is just a good way of like qualifying. So you can see how much money do they have and like how soon do they want to get started, depending on what your service or product is. And then from there, yeah, you can just use that information to either cancel the calls, reschedule the calls, or just not take the calls if you don't want to, if they don't fit the criteria. And you'd rather spend time doing that because that's a lot easier to manage than spending time at the front end, where you're like manually sifting through and qualifying each lead or using a lead scoring tool. You can do that, but it's much easier to do it on the back end. So yeah, that's our way of dealing with sort of qualified and unqualified leads. And we've really literally never have to deal with unqualified leads, because with those two things, that's how we filter everything. And all the calls that we're able to book are people who are qualified and ready to buy and interested. And this is a problem that they have because of the way that we built everything out from before. Cool. And then in terms of how we analyze campaigns and split test, so it's the last part of the whole thing. Analyzing campaigns, you can go over to here, for example, within Smartlead, and it'll tell you all the like global analytics. You can see here that the bounce rate is super low. But yeah, this is just like from a couple campaigns. And yeah, you can see like, how many you're sending, and you can see, the response rates and everything. And this is obviously pretty up to date and live. But yeah, you can see like how everything's going through at the moment. And so from here, you're able to see the open rate. And people say that open rate isn't that important, but it is. If no one's opening your email, then, whatever. No one's going to see what you have to offer. So yeah, open rate is something you need to keep track of, unless you're sending insane amounts of volume, which you're probably not. But yeah, keep track of this. If this drops below sort of 40%, then you need to troubleshoot. If you're getting between sort of 40 to 60%, it might be because your subject line or preview text isn't very good. If you're getting above sort of 60 to 70%, it means that things are looking good. Below 40% means you're probably ending up in spam, so you need to troubleshoot the deliverability. And then the responses. So if you're getting good open rate but low responses, so like less than, 3% or something, then it means that your copy is not very good, your offer is not very good, your lead magnet is not very good, and so on. So yeah, and then if you're getting high of this, but then super low of this, like less than 10% or something from this, then your lead magnet is probably not very good, and people are interested in what you actually have to offer. So you can work backwards from there and kind of like figure out what you need to work on. So yeah, there's that, and then you also want to make sure as well that you just look at the actual deals that you're closing, because that's the most important metric, how much revenue a campaign is bringing in. Because these analytics and stats could be great, but if you're not bringing in any revenue, then that's another thing. And if you have another campaign that you're running that is bringing in more revenue, but it's got lower numbers, then obviously that's the one that you want to focus on. So yeah, and then the final thing, split testing. So we run split tests every single Monday for all the campaigns, and we will split test copy, targeting, the CTA, follow-up sequences, all sorts of different things, subject lines, everything that you can think of. And we're constantly doing that. And the way that we split test is we'll send 1 to 200 emails for each variation that we're testing, so that we have some kind of substantial data, and then iterate from there, basically. And a good way to start is to test out 3 to 5 different copy angles with one subject line, and then basically iterate from that. So yeah, that's pretty much the entire process of how we go about setting up campaigns targeting, launching, and running and analyzing and everything in between for our cold emails. There are so many more things that we could go through, like AI and all sorts of different things. But obviously, it'd make this video super long, and I don't want to keep it over an hour. But yeah, I hope you found this video useful. Feel free to steal, take, use however you want to use it. Yeah, if you're interested in learning more about what we do, then I'm going to put a link in here at the bottom. Feel free to schedule a call. We can help you run all of your outbound, so you don't need to worry about this stuff. You've seen how we work. You've seen who I am. You've seen some of the results that we have. We've also got some case studies in here as well. So yeah, if you're an agency or a software company that is currently like thinking about doing outbound or currently running outbound, but you know that you could be doing it a lot better, then that's who we can help out with. We tend to work with sort of startups to small scale ups. So yeah, if you're in that range, then we'd love to chat, and you need some help, then yeah, book a call below, and yeah, speak soon.